Morning, everyone. Welcome to day 23 of Math 133. And today we're going to cover the cumulative review number 6. Now, we're not covering every cumulative review, so we're going to do 6 and 7. But there's some that we skipped. We're not going to do number 8. We're not going to do number 5. So if you need additional practice, or if you're finding that there's certain spots that you're struggling, take a look at those. And those are really great for studying for the final exam. Because when we meet in class and we go over the worksheets, it's really helpful because you can see like, okay, here's how you do these questions, but you also need to practice on your own. Okay, so as you're studying for the final, take a look at some of those that we skipped. Okay, I mean, you can take a look at the ones we did, but when you have the right answer sitting in front of you, it's kind of like, if you watch every NBA game ever, does that make you good at basketball? No, you have to practice on your own. So, anyway, today though, we're going to cover the cumulative review number 6, and that's going to start on page 591. Page 591. And it covers chapters 1 through 9. Next time when we meet, we'll start talking about chapter 10. I know we've already started talking about chapter 10 in Elaine's class and in the lecture notes. But in our class, we'll work on the chapter 10 project, which uses more of our we'll look more into our Candy data. Okay. But for now, page 591, cumulative review. So question number 1 is a linear regression. Scatter plot shows the relationship between U.S. states' average per person income and its food insecurity rate in the year 2021. So does anybody remember what page I go look at in my exam notes packet for these kinds of questions? This is the chapter 4 stuff. This is linear regression. Somebody give me the page number. I'm going to ask you guys because on test day, um, on the final exam day, you're going to have this, exam notes packet. Yours is yellow, and it's going to be sitting in front of you, and it's great because it has all the formulas you need and lots of stuff. But it's lots of stuff. It's like 15 pages. So I don't want you to like have to flip through and be like, where was that? I don't remember where that was. So and have it sitting in front of them. If not, that's okay. So I wrote chapter 4 on mine so that like I don't know if that helps you. It helps me because I remember chapter 4 is about linear regression. Maybe you don't, maybe you're just like, just write linear regression, or you can circle this right here because this is all about linear regression. No, you can do that too. Page 255 is where we'll look for this. Yeah, you got it, Andrew. Good job. Okay. Um, okay, so this is also, so we're gonna move on to the next page as long as you know, because all of that stuff for linear regression is on that page. So our next page is page 592. Following probability distribution is based on research of a random group of U.S. adults. Random variable X equals the number of days they would wait to seek medical treatment if they were suffering pain that interfered with their ability to work. Oh, that sucks. So, uh, explain why this is a valid probability model. So, there's two parts, right? First of all, uh, the sum of all of the probabilities is 100%. Okay. Or you can write, if you want to be, if you want to write it in math, the sum of the P of X equals 1. And then all probabilities between 0 and 1. Okay. Or if you want to write that in math. Okay. Now, we're just going to assume that they sum up to 1 because the question asked us why this is a valid probability model, which makes the assumption that it is. If the question had said, is this a valid probability model? We would have to go into Desmos and add all these up and double check to make sure that they do add up to 100%. Okay. I'm going to skip that step because the question has already told us that they do. Okay. Let's see. What probability? Let's see. Okay. Part F, find the mean of the probability distribution. So, and the RG is standard deviation. We had three methods for how to calculate mean and standard deviation. Um, First of all, what page were those methods on? Does anybody remember? I mean, I don't expect you to remember, but again, if you have your exam notes packet sitting in front of you on test day and you're flipping through trying to find stuff, like that's gonna be annoying. It's gonna take you time, right? So maybe something that would be valuable to have is remember that we're allowed to have an 8.5 piece of paper front and back with us on the final exam. Okay. And actually, for the final exam, you were allowed 2 pages, two 8.5 by 11 papers, front and back. Okay. And so one of the things that might be helpful to write is, you know, page 259 is linear regression. Page whatever, whatever is standard deviation methods. Okay. That way, if you're like, okay, I know this question is asking me to calculate a standard deviation, and I know that that we talked about this, but I don't want to have to flip through and find that in my yellow packet. So I don't know. It's just a suggestion, right? We're not just teaching you math, we're teaching you how to do math really, really fast for the final exam, right? I mean, most of you probably, I know most of you didn't run out of time on the midterm. You had time to do everything, but uh, okay. So page for finding mean and standard deviation is page 254, and there were three methods: raw data, frequency distribution. So which method am I using here? Method one, two, or three? What do you guys think? Find the mean of the probability distribution, find the standard deviation of the distribution. Method three. Uh-huh. That's for probability distribution. And if you're not sure, um, so maybe another way, another thing to add on to our 8.5 by 11 piece of paper is, you know, I've got method one, two, and three, and maybe you write out in your own words, okay, how do I know which one to use based on what I'm doing? So in this case, um, I know that I'm using method three because it's a probability distribution, but you know, if you're not clear on that, you're going to have two columns of data. one of the columns is probabilities. So one of these is decimals. Okay. I don't know if that helps you, but all right. And then don't forget to interpret. And there is that's going to use our give or take script. Okay. Find that on page 253 at the top. Right. So, the reason why we go through and give hints as opposed to just, why don't we just dive in and start working on these is when you're going back and reviewing these, I don't want you to look at it and be like, okay, well, we have the answer, right? So, like, you know, if I'm looking at this and I write, the answer is 4.26. When you're studying for the final exam, I don't want you to be like, okay, well, that's the answer. I have no clue how we got that, right? Because we're going to be doing this in StatCrunch. We're going to be using that method. Okay, so that's why we go through and write down these hints. So, all right. I'm going to skip this one. Pew Research Center survey of internet users found there are 1,122 agree online dating is a good way to meet people. Describe the population. All right, compute the point estimate. All right, wants to replicate this study, but needs to figure out how many people they need to survey. Using the point estimate as a prior estimate, calculate the minimum sample size. So for this, there's a formula for this. And then you substitute in the numbers into that formula, right? The formula is the letters, right? You substitute, and then you get final result. Okay. So this is asking us to find how big of a sample size do we need. So that was our chapter 9 stuff. And chapter 9 was on 2 pages. It was on page 259 and 261. So there's this mysterious page 260 in between the two that we keep skipping over. That's chapter 10 stuff. We'll look at that in a bit. So page 259 and 260, 259 and 261. So that's chapter 9. Uh, this one is for confidence intervals. So, all right. So, oh, wait. No, this is not right. This is page 255. This is page 254. Page 259 is confidence intervals. Page 261 is sample size formula. Because they certainly don't expect you to memorize those. So make sure you have that, available for you on test day so you're not having to search for it. Page 261. That's where we're going for this formula. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Let's go on to the next page. Page 594. Find the critical values for a 88% confidence interval for P. Okay. So confidence interval is always two numbers. It's a lower limit and an upper limit. Okay. And our confidence interval is going to be this area. Okay. The white space on the outside, that is your error, your alpha. Okay. But for our case, we want to shade in 88% of this white space under this curve here. Okay. So we'll find our z value here and our negative z and our positive z values. Okay. this is not done. We got to actually find it, right? So this one, we do it in StatCrunch, statcrunch.com. So you're finding Z health over 2 equals 2014, there are roughly 500,000 electric vehicles on the road worldwide. You want to construct a confidence interval for the average miles per gallon equivalent these cars had in 2014. The table shows the miles per gallon equivalent for 5 random electric vehicles. Verify the conditions are met for constructing a confidence interval. Random. Is it random? Is it independent? All right. Based on these, construct a 90% confidence interval for the average miles per gallon equivalent. Okay. So we're constructing a confidence interval, and you find that on page 259. Okay. Yeah, I wrote that down so that I know, okay, I'm looking for confidence interval formulas. I'm gonna jump to that page. Okay. It's kind of got myself an index going or a table of contents. All right. Um, okay. I think that's all of the hints for today. Let's go back and do some math.